has been super fun. So, all right. Awesome. Well, so 26 was with you, 27 was with me. This is 28. 28.
28.
28. Yay. 28. Toucan Sam. 28.
We're stimming. We're stimming.
All right. Well, screw it. We're just going to dive right in. All right.
Cool.
Well, Alex, here we are. Welcome.
Here we
Thank
are.
you. Thanks for coming back and putting up with the shenanigans, all the technical mumbo jumbo I put you through. Which I do see that the one record timer on that one's up to 9 minutes. So I know it was at least 9 minutes of BS to get us to the point right here. But hopefully our production quality will shine through in episode number 28 because we strive for the best thing here on the Geek Speak, right? That's what I'm ripping my hair out every day to make sure I make it as complicated as humanly possible to drive my brain into dribble and create this madness that is the podcast.
Well, let me tell you, the amount of tech that you have in that room alone is worth probably more than the amount of flesh and blood cards I own. So it is definitely a labor of love.
Mic check 1 2. No, we're not doing this over ham. I thought about doing one of these over a ham radio. That would be
over a ham. No way. There'd be no way.
You'd have to.
We'd get like the most trucker interference that we've ever thought of in our lives. We'll have to cut the episode. I've had to completely cut it.
I was looking at there was actually a podcast I found. It was a ham radio podcast, and I guess they do it over the air, but I guess they have to every once in a while. There's like rules for how often you have to say some certain key phrase or word to like say your station ID or something. And it was the weirdest thing to listen to because it was just like in the random middle. They'd have to like stop talking to have this broadcast happen so that they'd follow the right rules. So yeah, I don't know. Kind of funny. Anyways,
a ham radio law.
This is a flesh and blood podcast, mostly not a ham radio podcast. So if you want more about the ham radio stuff, that's going to be on my other channel that I convinced the wife to spin up so that I can do all my weird techie projects like the lathe work and the 3D printing and all that stuff. I'm going to start talking about that on that channel because apparently when you multifacet your channels out, apparently YouTube hates you and does really bad things with your channel. So.
Yeah, I like to stick to a topic. Do one thing really well and be consistent about it. YouTube loves that, but if you're trying to branch off and do a whole bunch of other things that are not related to one another in any way, then it tends to be a bit of an issue.
And that's why we have the test text, because now I have a whiteboard that I can play with. And yes, it's a real whiteboard, not a CG, even though in reality I actually thought about putting the green screen down and finding a Wacom tablet and then trying to find a way where I could write and my head would be in the bottom corner. That tech was just way too stupid for me to pull off. Like I spent.
That's pretty fun. I have a Wacom tablet.
I've heard you can do it. Like I've heard there are people that use like an iPad in a professional setting where they take the iPad and then they take the output and then they somehow put it behind them where they can write. But at the moment, I don't know why, but I feel like that tech is a little too beyond what my scope of setup is capable of doing. So maybe in the future it'd be kind of fun, but the physical board was, I just went to Menards. Do you have Lowe's or Menards out there, or like both, or one or the other?
I personally haven't looked, but like I can almost imagine we have a Lowe's. If not, we have a Home Depot for sure. So
like what I did was, this is literally it's a 4x8 board, and it's actually called dry erase board, and it was just like a panel board that you would put on a wall. So I got that and I cut it up, and that's how I like it showed you earlier. I'm hanging it from strings or chains from the ceiling, so I can move it around. But yeah. So this week has been a very interesting week in the world of flesh and blood. Like there have certainly been some very interesting reveals for the new set.
Oh yeah.
So much so that I'm not even really sure where to actually kind of begin, because in reality, there's some real bangers worth of stuff that probably should be discussed, and then there's kind of a sprinkling of older stuff that I think we've kind of discussed. I know you've probably talked about on your channel as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you want to approach this? Because I don't know a great way to dive right into the kind of interesting madness or chaos that has, found its way to our screens.
Yeah, I think that if there's two things to touch on so far that I've seen from the spoilers that we have, and obviously as of the recording of this video, there are still more spoilers that are coming out for Arachne Marionette, the new version of Arachne that is coming out in the Hunted. Um, there are, well, I guess there are three things, right? We got confirmation that the fourth deck in the Blitz deck collection is not going to be Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, but instead Contract Arachne from Dynasty. So you're going to have Arachne in Arachne, something of the web. Hold on, it's down here somewhere.
Well, so that means that Arachne will have multiple Blitz decks of its same, like it already has a Blitz deck in Outsiders. So this is
Mm-hmm.
another Blitz deck that
Well, it's
sprinkles
got a
in.
blitz deck in the contract Arachne does not have a blitz deck in Outsiders. Arachne Solitary Confinement has a blitz deck from Outsiders. Different hero.
I'm mixing that up then?
Yeah, so Arachne Solitary Confinement came out in Outsiders. He is the one that says your first stealth attack on your turn gets go again. That is the one where he's in like a jail cell. But then there's the Arachne that came out in Dynasty, which is the very first release of Arachne, who cares about looking at the top card of your deck. Where anytime you play a contract card, you look at the top of your card of your opponent's deck, and then you can choose to put it on the top or the bottom of the deck during that time. But in this Blitz deck collection for the Hunted, what we're getting Arachne Web of Deceit, which is the young version of Arachne Marionette that's going to be in the set, a brand new version of Arachne, and then also the fourth Blitz deck, which I believe everybody had thought to be Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, which is a promo for going to Prague, but it is also going to be a promo at your pre-release kit, like in your pre-release kit to get. That Arachne is in an adult form. So we expected the young version of Arachne to be in the what do you call it? To be in the young version and therefore be the fourth Blitz deck. But it turns out that fourth Blitz deck is Contract Arachne from Dynasty. So that means that Arachne Slip Through the Cracks does not have, as of this very moment, unless it's in the set, a young version of themselves, and it is only an adult hero. So that's kind of interesting.
So yeah, I mean, now that you're saying that, I found a quick link, but yeah, the Outsiders one is, and I guess I'm just not an Arachne specialization name, so to me they kind of, I thought Arachne was Arachne, but yes, there are two Arachne Young, which really now there are three Arachne Young.
Correct.
Because there's Arachne Web of Deceit, Arachne Solitary Confinement, and just the name
and just Arachne. Right. Yep. So there are currently three, if not maybe four, if Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, which is the adult promo of Arachne, gets a young version of themselves too. Then there will be four young Arachne and only three adult Arachne in that same regard, because Solitary Confinement did not get an adult version of themselves.
I think the more important thing to me is noticing that is, they talked about bringing back mentors, and this brings back mentor, at least in the Arachne Blitz deck. We see that there is a mentor, and that's what threw me for a loop at first, is because I thought mentors are supposed to be for young only. So you cannot use this, or like I should say, in Blitz. So you can't use this in CC, which I kind of was originally thinking you could, but I guess I was very wrong on that, because mentors, at least from the rule set that I understand, are young only.
Yep. Yeah. Mentors are only for young heroes. There was some contention when Arachne's mentor, the hand that pulls the strings that's coming out in that hunted set, in that hunted blitz deck more specifically. Um, the issue there was that the the what the hell do you call it? The mentor did not say that it was for young heroes only. It just said it was
Okay.
for,
Yeah.
you can have this in your deck if it's Arachne. What does it say here? Yeah, Arachne Mentor. It doesn't say anywhere on the card that your hero needs to be young. And more importantly, it also doesn't say anywhere that your hero needs to be Arachne. So
Wait,
this
what do you mean
was,
it doesn't say your hero needs to be Arachne? I guess it doesn't say that.
yeah, and that's also totally fine because most mentors are not tied directly towards a hero, unless like very
It's a
specific in
4
those
defense
situations.
though,
But
so that's pretty sweet.
yep, it's got 4 defense, and it's, it's able to be utilized in any of the assassins. But again, something that was, it doesn't say that it's for young heroes, and so there was a lot of people who were just like, wait a minute, mentors in CC, and then immediately the judge crew posted in the purple Discord, and they were just like, nope, it is still, mentors are still only for young heroes, so like don't go getting crazy about it. Like,
Yeah.
it's still only for young heroes.
So then I'm assuming the second most important thing is the fact that we've now seen, it looks like the one or 4 of the 6. So 1, 2, 4, and 5, which is we're missing 3 and 6, which
Mm-hmm.
one of them would be, I'm assuming it looks like the one that would have been for metrics ish is one we
Yeah.
still haven't seen. And
Mm-hmm.
then is what's the other, like the one that has the
I think
ninja,
it's the Orb Weaver.
the orb
The
weaver?
Orb Weaver
Okay.
one. Yep.
So
Yep.
those,
Those are the ones we're currently missing. But they've been releasing a new Agent of Chaos every single day since 4 days ago. So
and really
by
one dropped
the
right before we were we were recording this, so that was kind of why I was like, that's
yep,
pretty cool.
yep.
That
So
was the red back.
that's gonna be fun there. But that Arachne, new Arachne is gonna be very, very interesting. I think that a lot of people were wondering what the chaos like talent really meant effectively because we didn't know what was going on. And in theory, it just looks like what is happening is that the chaos of it all is Arachne Marionette. When their hero power was released, we got to learn a little bit more about what exactly it is they did and how it was able to be utilized with these agents of chaos that we knew existed already. Because with Arachne Marionette, you have the second bulk of text that's on there that just says at the beginning of your end phase, if an opponent is marked, you become a random agent of chaos. Your health doesn't change, but you become a random agent. And all of these agents seem to have a very common cost to them, which is effectively they all have different abilities, but they all, in the reaction step, they cost you 1 assassin card from your hand. You have to discard an assassin card from your hand. And when you do, X thing happens based on the agent of chaos that you are for that turn.
I mean, so far
So,
they all say +3 plus some ability stapled to it, and then at the end of the turn return it to the brood, which I'm assuming the brood is just their version of the stack of 6 cards that you're rolling your dice to
yep,
get.
pretty much. Yeah, it's just that's the other thing. Something else that is notable is that if you are playing this new version of Arachne, there was a lot of there's a lot of rumor about whether or not these demi heroes were going to just be like, okay, cool, you could just slot the best 2 in there and then just
No.
be able to swap between it. And it turns out that you need to have all 6. You
Yep.
are required to have all 6, and that's why they're tokens in the pre-release kit, because that way you have them all in case you wish to play Arachne Marionette. But they are all, you have to have all 6 if you're playing Arachne. They're tokens, so they don't take up a sideboard slot. And yeah,
So
that's
I'm
kind of
gonna
it
ask
there.
the
So
question because I'm the non-competitive minded person, right? I'm the more have fun casual person. Uh, do you think that this Arachne has a chance with this random mechanic to be a contender, or is that random not is such a deterrent for folks to pick it as something that could be good or bad? Does that, I mean, my question might be worded poorly, but because random is
Do I
now
think the hero's
in
good?
this, well, I think good and then like meta defining are two different things. I think the hero is good because it looks cool. Honestly, this is a freaking hilarious UPF character. I think this is going to
Hmm.
be great in UPF, but like I don't understand if you are reliant so much on the dice roll, because it does say, right, if I read this right, your attacks with stealth, blah blah blah. So at the beginning of your end phase, if an opponent is marked, you become a random agent of chaos. That is not a you may. It's a you will become.
Yeah, you
Like
become. Yeah, yeah.
that is why I'm curious, that state-based component. What does that mean compared to like you have this other arachne slip through the cracks, right? That we still don't know much about other than it's cool looking, but it just basically has a nothing ability other than nothing in the sense of it doesn't involve those other things. It is a chaos assassin hero that doesn't flip itself into whatever.
Right. Yeah. And effectively the concept behind this hero is that at least there is another portion of text on Arachne Marionette where your attacks with stealth that are attacking a marked hero, they get +1, and whenever they hit,
They
they
get
get
go
go again.
again. Yep.
So you are at least still threatening something, even though you're not in that position of, okay, you might not be a agent of chaos this turn. Because the one big thing that has not really been divulged, because we don't know a lot of the commons and uncommons, or commons and rares that are in the set,
We don't know the
is that,
weapons yet either.
and the weapons are definitely going to be a great, like, aha moment, but also we don't know how to like consistently mark an opponent, because what
Mm-hmm.
we know is that if you hit an opponent, they are no longer marked, which means that if you end up hitting with Arachne Marionette and then you can't mark them at the end of your turn, you don't transform. You don't become anything. You're still just Arachne Marionette. So in this situation, it sounds like a more valid strategy would be to be more almost defensive in a way, and then mark them with something, like, even if it's just like, I'm expecting the daggers to do something like, when this hits, mark them. Or if, something, hey, you pay a 0 cost card, mark your opponent. And that will be enough to be like, okay, cool. This card's not going to get go again. And you can just go ahead and you can just chill and wait. And then whenever it's your next turn, depending on who you roll into, and depending on the cards you have in your hand, you might be able to present like an additional little bit of damage. But I
So
don't really think that it's going to be crazy powerful.
do you think that the assassins are going to actually leverage daggers, or do you think they're daggers are more set up for that royal draconic piece? Because I know that there are a lot of daggers that exist in other sets for assassin, and I'm imagining some of them might come back in this set, so they're not reinventing the wheel. But I also, looking at this, right, 000's got to be the fabled from whatever it's going to be. We know
Uh-huh.
that the number 5, you got 1 2, so 5 6 7, those are going to be um, more of those Arachne 1 through 6s. There's a couple of cards and then your first Majestic, so there might be a couple, like if I'm looking at this, 8 through 14, but you already have 1 2, that's 3 4 5. So number 8 is a token. So 9 10 11 12 13 14. There could be, if Tarantula Toxin is the first Majestic, there could be 6 weapon choices theoretically, up to.
Right. Yeah. And
Well,
and these
and a
could be
legendary. I guess the
other.
legendary would also be in there too. So maybe that doesn't.
Yeah. More than likely a new legendary, which would come probably after Arachne Tarantula. Then, of course, you're taking a look at, I would imagine,
Like
one
other
dagger.
equipment.
Right? I'd imagine a dagger, and then you're looking at 10 to 14. They could be more Majestics. Tarantula Toxin could be the last Majestic. You just 5 different Majestics that come in there. because after that it goes into like the commons and uncommons, or commons and rares and stuff.
And I
So
don't think they're going to reveal a lot of the lower tier stuff from what I heard. I think that they're keeping that for the world premiere, I believe.
yep. Yeah, they're
So
swapping it from what they did last year, because um last year it was they gave everybody all the commons and uncommons to spoil, or keep saying uncommons, I apologize. All the commons and rares
rares.
to spoil, to kind of like get people hyped for the really cool stuff that you could find in Rosetta. And then it people, I guess, didn't like it because they were like, oh, I don't really get to know what like the bombs look like or what like powerful things are. And now they're allowing more hype to happen into heroes, because they're going to be releasing these majestics and legendaries and showing those off, so that way it's more hype for the set. And then the commons and uncommons will come as they play limited to kind of get a better.
You're not going to make everybody happy. I don't think that's ever going to be the case. So I
No,
think
you're
I
not.
think they've both been fine. I like both options, right? I mean, as a person knowing I'm not going to be able to make the premiere at Prague because I can't go there. I don't have the ability to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
I could care less which direction they reveal things in because I'm gonna still get to view it. But at the event, I guess I will have already, especially looking at these things, already have kind of spoiled myself with seeing everything. So even at the pre-release event that I'm going to, hopefully, I need to see if one's still available in my area. Actually, you know, I'm assuming all the cards will be spoiled by that point. Maybe even the fabled or
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah, depends. I mean, I think it really comes down to the pre-released. We're expecting a lot of people to already kind of know everything about it already. I think the world premiere is really like that day zero. Like, this is, this is going to be new territory for everybody who opens up their first packs of the Hunted. Whereas pre-release is still in that same manner, but it is, if you're trying to spike a pre-release or do any kind of studying in that regard, then
I mean, the world
going
premiere is
online and looking at it
January
is good.
17th, 18th, and 19th. So
Mm-hmm.
the
Pre-release is right
the
after that,
pre-release is
or a
within
week
a
after that,
week.
and then
Yeah.
release. Yeah. So, but it'll be good regardless. I mean, I don't care how they do it. I think I liked how they did it with Rosetta, because I liked seeing the commons and it's commons rares for commoner and clash purposes. I thought that was really, really nice. But of course, they're not the bombs, right? This isn't like, they're not the cards that are going to define things in this regard. It's going to be, do I want to invest in this hero right now, or do I want to wait? And in most cases, without knowing what these bomb cards are, if they release like a Justin Nick level worth of card in here for assassin in chaos talent, then it's probably going to be a lot more like intense in that regard. So
Sure.
I
But
don't
I
know,
mean,
but it's going to be interesting.
we could get a chaos bobble instead of a crack bobble. That'd be a cute little add-on. I made the joke about that earlier. I was like, not that it would affect anything in the set, but maybe it'd be flavorful. So I guess I'd like to jump over to the end of the set and talk about some of these expansion cards because
Mm-hmm.
I kind of posted in our little group chat earlier. Looking back in history, right? The Bright Lights, which was the first official expansion pack, brought 15 cards, including the Tunic, which was the big draw for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy Hitters brought 10. Mistveil brought 13 plus that Enigma, which doesn't really, I don't know where you count that, but that is part of it.
Right.
Rosetta had 15 with Briar, Young and Old, and the Rosetta Thorn, which is the Marvel. So I guess all three of those were Marvels. That maybe they count as expansion slots. They weren't part of the main set, but they were in there. And
They're expansion slots.
the Hunted right now supposedly looks like it's about 15, or it could be up to 19, depending on if 260 through 264 also is, or if those are tokens. They might be tokens actually, which is because the Hunted token, or I'm sorry, the marked token, it's already in there at 244 and 245. So the expansion slot in this could be up to 19 cards. What are your thoughts on? I know that they stopped doing the supplementary sets, and then now we're going to get like Guardian Pack Mastery set at some point, which is focused more on that, and that's kind of the closest to like Dynasty or Everfest that I think we're gonna get. But like, they can't really, or at least I haven't gotten the data on this, but I don't think they've released in every expansion slot. Not every hero type or archetype or hero got something. It just kind of was random within there. So
Uh-huh.
I don't see a
Yeah.
mech card yet. So we may not get a mech card in this set, which probably is fine. We just got the dash deck. So there's all these little pieces that they're starting, like even with the gym packs, right? There's so many ways now they can just put cards into the ecosystem for very little try.
Yeah,
Which
absolutely. I mean, I think that's what it's supposed to be about, though. Like I think what it is it, it's difficult because what it really comes down to is that these these expansion card sets or like slots, they don't they don't directly affect the meta now, but
retrace the
in
past.
theory, they affect the meta in the future because it is when the cards are designed and created, they're done, years like a year ago, right? They're thought
Sure.
about, and they're just like, okay, like we can look into this and see about adding this into this set and see if this works. And like sometimes they maybe push ideas further depending on if certain heroes need assistance. But like you take a look at like Fi's been needing some boost for a long while now, and Fi has gotten nothing, like nothing besides like Tome of Imperial Flame, if you could even consider that the help that he needs. And so when it comes down to it, these cards are kind of just being made to what I personally believe to be help shape the class and the hero, like and the talent to further assist in what it is meant to do. Right now we have Warcry of Bologna, which is a new Bolton card that's going out there. And I say Bolton because there's no other light warriors right now, just
Sure.
Bolton. And so this card is not a Bolton specialization, but it can be used in all light warriors. So if we have future ones, we'll end up seeing that in there probably. But this is a card that defines what light and warrior are effectively meant to do, right? You spend your soul to either protect yourself or you can utilize it for an offensive ability in the sense of a mid-range warrior-esque style. And cards like that to supplement and give assistance to certain heroes, it may be like a little too late situation, but it's still support. And as long as every single card I've seen from the hunted expansion slot has been gas since
Well,
every single one of them have been absolutely insane looking. So
one thing I wanted to call out that I was just checking to make sure I was not, I'm probably still wrong in this. So if I am, please in the comment section below roast me, tell me I'm wrong. So far, looking at again going back to Bright Lights, Mist Veil, I'm looking at Rosetta right now, and then the Hunted. If in the expansion slot, that's typically cards that are not a part of the core set, meaning they're not in the same class or talents. This
right.
will be the first example because Spurlocked is a chaos action, which there's an asterisk on that card anyways. But this will be the first time that a actual card in that slot could have been in the main set, but it looks like they chose not to include it in the main draftable set. However, you can use that card, it looks like, in constructed formats. So that was an
Yes.
interesting decision choice from what I can see, because looking at these other ones, they don't match the talents other than Enigma is a Mystic Illusionist Young Hero. That would
Mm-hmm.
be an example of one that came out in part the Mistveil.
So,
But
and I think the reason being is that with Spurlocked, which also big congrats to Brody for
yeah,
getting that card
absolutely.
out there. It's super cool. Um, with Spurlocked, it is definitely a card that in most cases you imagine people are going, because if you get the higher number, you get to go look through your deck. So in most cases, people can say 5 or 6, right? And assume that their opponent is going to choose less. And if they choose less, then they don't lose life. The person playing Spurlocked is going to lose life, and then they get to go tutor. I'd
Sure.
imagine they don't want people to tutor in a limited environment. And
Okay,
so
I could see that.
having that be the case, I think that's why, because not only is Blitz, or not Blitz, but limited a 20 health format, right? A young hero 20 health format. So already you don't have a lot of life to work with.
Yeah,
But you definitely don't want to be like, yeah, I pulled this card that allowed me to tutor the card I needed to beat you. Therefore, that's the case. Now, of course, you have the opportunity where, like, if your opponent secretly chooses 6 and you end up choosing 6, nothing happens. And like
sure, that
you
makes
could
sense.
run into those situations, but also it's a trick, right? If you don't really want to search for anything because your hand sucks, you play Spurlock, your opponent goes, I think they're going to try and choose 6, and you choose 3, then your opponent loses 6 life
Sure.
because they
Yeah.
just chose a number.
And
And
that
that's
there's a
not good
beauty
limited
in,
environment.
yeah, it's
So,
kind of like, it reminds me of Vampiric Tutor in some regard. It's not exactly the same thing, obviously, but like it reminds me, and that's the only lose life tutor that I remember, because I think Diabolic and the other ones in Magic, they were not really a lose life. I think Vampiric was the one that was a lose life and get
mhm.
it, or Mystic Tutor might have been another one. It's been a while since I've touched those cards. I'm probably way wrong on those, but I do want to call out the art here. I love the ham sandwich. I love the spurs. I love whatever the hell is going on with, like, it must be like a poker game or a
Mhm.
wager game. And there is definitely some weird shenanigan looking stuff in the background. I haven't zoomed in very close on this photo yet to be able to get to some of this, but like there's definitely some characters in there that are like, okay, this is cool.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a great design card. Obviously it fits that chaos talent pretty well. Um and I think it's going to be a fun thing to be able to play. Um and certainly, I'd imagine the goal for many is to have Brody sign their copy if they ever
Yeah,
are
I
at an
definitely
event.
want to get one to keep
So,
in my binder just in case. So,
yeah.
you know,
But it'll be good. It'll be a fun time.
there was another reveal, and I don't remember where it was, but it's the dwarf. You know where that came from? Was that a promo for Prague?
Yeah, that's a Prague promo for Unmovable.
That is pretty epic. Like,
It's a good looking card.
I absolutely want that card.
Mhm.
And I hope to find a way to get it. What's interesting about that is I kind of in my head giggle that, like, now that they revealed some of these cards, when I first saw that I was like, is this a brand new card? And then I had to look twice, and I'm like, no, it's Unmovable. It's just a
Uh-huh.
very fancy version of Unmovable. And yeah, it was
Yep. It's a good one. I think there's, obviously they're planning on continuing to bring out such like insanely powerful and good looking cards. I think they've really understood that micro text box that these promos have,
it's
such like that
powerful.
Unmovable
Yeah.
has. They're really, really, really like they're favored amongst a lot of people in the community.
Hmm.
And the micro text box, just like, it simplifies things, it shows off a lot more of the art, and you can still enjoy them in that manner. And so that's going to be really, really cool to see a lot of these new what do you call them, extended art, like micro text box cards, to be released too.
And I mean, that goes kind of back into the gym pack, which I don't know if we actually got to discuss on any of what I think we kind of came out in between
I
the
think we
last
did.
time we got to talk, but I know we kind of talked about it a little bit. But now that we know it can contain a lot of different cards, um,
Mm-hmm.
with microtext and everything, I feel like there's also a kind of an interesting undertone to that, meaning that if you're collecting cards to try to max rarity something, you might want to just know that there could be out of the blue something in these gem packs or an expansion slot or something that's going to, you know, give that card a run for its money. Because as an example, Unmovable now, right? If I
Mm-hmm.
originally would have thought the pink strip Unmovable would have been the chase version of Unmovable from WTR Alpha.
Mm-hmm.
But now, honestly, I'd rather have this dwarf looking one. And
Right. I
I
think
know,
I don't know. I think what it comes down to, and this is just going to be like the way for everything, is even if we take a look at the first edition rainbow foil of Unmovable, you can buy a first ed rainbow foil Unmovable from Welcome to Wraith for $5.
ooh,
So
nice.
if it puts that into perspective of what commons from Welcome to Wraith Alpha are going for, they're pretty cheap comparatively. And those are still, they're sought after cards, and like that version of Unmovable is not going to be printed in rainbow foil at all in the future because of this specific art in now of the reprint policy. This is a situation in which obviously Unmovable is getting a rainbow foil reprint, but it's in a different art. And so that's why they're able to do this and give it that. Now, obviously, it is a dealer's choice situation. You take a look at all of the Magic players who love playing with their oldest versions of the cards with the older art and the older border. Like, that is something that people will still be sought after. Do I think that the art for this Unmovable, the extended art one here, is significantly better than the original? Yes, I do. But from a collector's perspective, there are going to be significantly more versions of that Unmovable probably than this Unmovable in WTR Alpha. But that's just depending on allocation. So
Yeah, and I was looking at this earlier too because this is something I was kind of curious about. The extended art cards in Flesh and Blood, there are a decent number of different ones depending on what set you're looking for. So there's promos, but in Rosetta, where we have the 10-foot tall and bulletproof, which is a generic, I only see there's one left, and it's $48. And then there's only 4 Call to the Graves, and there's only 5 Truces. It's like those generic cards are just, I don't know if there's just not a lot out there. People aren't selling them. Like, I mean, I think they're beautiful. I really would like one of each in the future, but I can't believe there's just one listing of that.
They're hard to pull.
I guess, yeah.
They're hard to pull, and then again, like, it comes down to this too, right? Like, I know that there are several backpack sellers who don't sell off TCG Player, so if that's the case, you don't have that. TCG Player also does not count the rest of the world's market, so Europe, Asia, all the the APAC region, none of that gets listed on TCG Player. So all of those versions of those cards could still exist in a different language on the other side of the world, and have multiple copies there.
In a long time now, I haven't
you
even thought about them.
But but that's what I mean is like there's so many people around the world playing Flesh and Blood and opening Flesh and Blood, but even still, we're still in that same mindset where if you're trying to build a hero and you need cards for that hero, you're not cracking packs to get those cards. I feel like the intelligence of the Flesh and Blood community to go, yeah, I'm not going to get EV back from this box unless there's like 3 Marvels in here. I'm not going to get EV back from the box. You might get like a little bit depending on what you open, right? If you opened up a box of Dust Till Dawn and you got a freaking Warmonger's Diplomacy in there and a Marvel Angel, you definitely made your money back. Like, that's the case. But again, you only make your money back when you sell the cards. So
there's
it all
definitely
comes
like 30
down to what you're going to do.
30 or so. Oh, it looks like 26. I guess it tells you. So there's 26 on Card Market. So that's
so
funny that I have to go over there to buy a playset just to get it in the US. That's funny.
I mean, you probably could ask. I mean, like MinMax doesn't list on TCG Player as far as I know. Realm Games doesn't list on TCG Player as far as I know. I mean, I know Hammurabi TCG, who does the Bazaar stuff, they don't list on TCG as far as I know. So it's there's a lot of people who sell, you could even have locals who have copies of it that you might just need to hit up and be like, hey, are you looking to sell this? And they might be able to sell it for significantly less than what's on TCG Player. But I think really what it comes down to is if people have the cards, they're probably either trading them, selling them in person, or if they really are trying to like get a big boom on a TCG Player market, they'll sell them on TCG Player. But most people who do, I mean, you have to open case after case after case after case. I think out of the entire case that I opened, I got 1 extended art card, which is like really, really low odds. So, you can only imagine most players don't tend to open more than like 2 cases, maybe 3 cases at that. But like, if you put that in perspective, if the people with money who are able to open up cases open up only 2 cases, that's at their odds of 1 per case, the 2 copies of a card that now can enter the market. And they probably sold early because there was a lot of hype around it, and now nobody's opening up cases, and because now nobody's opening up cases, you're seeing less and less in the market, which is just going to grow the price. So it always comes down to that players are not opening product at a rate like Magic the Gathering players are, because our numbers are significantly smaller, and we also know that we don't need to open boxes in order to get the cards we want. We can just buy those cards.
Yeah. 2 days ago, somebody bought the 2 I was going to look at on 12/6. Looks like 12/16. Actually, it looks like a bunch sold 12/15, 12/16. Somebody bought this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, according to this, sold on 12/16 and 12/15 that are not showing on the. They all sold for $30-something on that day. Don't know why, but
I mean, to be fair, there was hype around that card during the skirmish season because KO Berserker Runt was running it in their deck, and that's a deck that doubles the base power of your card if you roll a 5 or a 6. So if you roll a 5 or a 6 when you play 10 foot tall, you get 20 damage in 1 card that costs you 3 resources. So there's a reason, and I don't know how many KO Berserker Runt fans are out there, but if you're looking to spike a skirmish or at least like have something fun to play for a blitz deck, like that's something you can do. And so
that'd be
there's
a good
hype around
jank
that.
deck. I love it.
Yeah. Yep, it's fun times. So
well, I guess I'd kindly request that we shift gears into some education for me, because I feel like you would know a little bit more than myself, because I wanted to discuss the Jarl deck, which I was able to get a copy from my LGS, so I have one here in physical form. But looking at the Fabry link that kind of has these, you have no arcane. I mean, has Sloop's video come out yet about the kind of the pros and cons of this? Because I believe
so.
I do have some quarrels, and they're very in line with what he had said. And it's not that I'm trying to poo on the product, but like, there's no arcane barrier in this, like he pointed out. There is no sideboard, and I'm paying $20 more. Yeah, I get a guaranteed legendary, but because this is the only way to get that legendary, the Marvels or the Majestics and the legendaries, they're essentially legendary because they're one-ofs. It makes no major difference to me in one way or the other, because you do get the 3 of the Unforgettings, you get 3 of the Exposed to Elements, which is a reprint if I recall.
Yep.
You get 3 Frozen to Deaths. So it's not like those cards are going to be hard to come by, and you don't need more than one of the legendary card because it's just a piece of equipment.
Yep.
But like, I don't know. It's kind of lackluster with the fact that I agree. There's just no fancy token, no nothing. I mean, that's why my wife makes the dice and resin. And
there is a fancy token
in the box.
Yeah, there's the frostbites and the -1 counters.
That's a piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
I'm okay. It is
tokens.
It is one step up, but it is not like, I don't have a good example, but I mean, this is a 3D printed Magikarp, but like, it's not a plastic, token would be what I would think that from a premium product.
I don't know. I mean, I am very much so, when we take a look at what the deck offers and what we can compare it to, which is probably the most regular thing to purchase on the market for TCGs, which is a commander precon deck.
Yeah, those have gone down in quality over time because I remember originally those
they've gone up.
They've gone up in quality.
Well, they've gone up in quality of cards that they put in the deck.
Oh, sure. I'm talking about the accessories and stuff because at one point you got like a thick cardboard version of your hero or your commander and stuff. Like you got some,
which did nothing. Like that was just for funsies.
Sure, but it was still an interesting inclusion, I guess. It was a feels.
And good. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I think it, and which it might have been a feels good for you, and it was probably a feels good for other players. But like I threw it out immediately all the time if I bought one because why did I need it? Like I don't need that. It's not a collector's piece. It's not anything else. It's just a bigger version of a card that I already have available in the situation. So it's not a card I can just play and then be like, yeah, cool, this is my commander. Like you can put it on top of your commander and be kind of neat. But in this situation, when it comes down to armory decks, I'll defend them forever, right? Because I think that they really are an insanely good product and it's done nothing but help the Flesh and Blood community.
And when you are starting, those facts, I think that these are a much needed part of the ecosystem. So I absolutely think that these are, for the most part, a home run. I tend to agree.
When you're starting Flesh and Blood, you don't know anything.
No.
You don't know what arcane damage is. You don't know any of that, right? You could play that at your armory, and nobody could be playing arcane damage. Now, obviously, that's probably not true in this specific meta as of right now. But the concept is that if you are going to run into arcane barrier, obviously your opponent is not, they're not responsible for being like, hey, you didn't bring arcane barrier, I got you, buddy, right? And then give you arcane barrier.
Sure.
But in a setting in which it's like, yeah, cool, you probably should have arcane barrier into me, and I'll tell you why. Go ahead and just put the word arcane barrier on your boots. Just put it on there, right? Just think that it's on there. And then every time I attempt to deal arcane damage to you, you're going to pitch a card and you're going to do that, right? It's just it's another thing to learn, right? And if you really wanted to get into why you learn what arcane damage does, you buy the first strike decks, because that's what that is meant to do, is teach you about the difference between arcane and physical and how to properly go about, blocking out that damage, even though, there's only spell void and not arcane or not arcane barrier, but the option is there when you're looking at those decks. But I don't think that it's like, I don't think it's an absolute necessity.
We're going to get more of those first strikes because, face it, we're about 4 months into those existing, and they serve a good purpose, especially at a conference or at a venue. But like, I haven't seen any other indication that there's more of those inbound versus like we're getting blitz decks, and we know blitz decks, together. I mean, at this point, I pretty much own every blitz deck, and we'll try to continue to do that going forward. And heck, I'm going to try to own every armory deck because, again, it seems like they're including currently cards that you really can only get in the armory deck. So like KO has like the Savage Sash, I think is what it is. So if you want to play that, you really kind of need one of those to play it. I don't know if Bolton has any I mean, I'm sure he does have an exclusive card, but nothing at the moment that's relevant to like somebody saying, oh my gosh, I got to go spend the money on that, right? But
I mean, there are some cards that are pretty important to Bolton's game plan that are in that deck. So
Dash obviously had a fair share of ones in there. Azalea, I think, had some unique stuff in it. Plus, Azalea had that cool, for lack of a better word, one in some odd chance of having a different background, right? That was a really cool flavor add. I don't know if these Jarl decks have anything like that. I mean, obviously, it's going to take a lot of people opening them and trying to compare different
As
cards.
far as I know, they do not. So
that's kind of a unique component. Yeah, I mean, I guess for lack of a better word, I'm not mad at the deck. I just, when you're paying an extra $20 for it, I kind of wonder, especially if my LGS, would charge not necessarily over MSRP, but in the case where they had it, they had very limited quantities. And I used my point system to reduce the cost of this because it was selling for the $59.99, which is the MSRP. So can't be mad
Uh-huh.
at them for that. But I also very much saw online people selling this for a lot more. So it's interesting that our LG, again, I don't know, again, the ecosystem out there and the ecosystem here, it seems very interesting because even talking to the store owner here, the one that I've been chatting with, he hopes he's going to keep getting these armory decks, but again, because they're only doing casual side events, once a Sunday, he may not be able to keep getting them. I don't know. Like this is, and the same with the gym packs, right? Like it's all about attendance and do you have something?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to reserve any of my concerns until after that pops off. But like, I hope
You have a bug on your shoulder?
I do. That oh hey look, that's why my neck was itching. Hi, gosh dang it, it's a stink bug or what do they call it? There you go. I was like, why is my I kept itching and I'm like something is on me.
I was like, yeah, you got a little friend there on your shoulder there.
He can hang out on the microphone for all I care. Um, it's just one of the. I mean, we have these all over the place in Indianapolis, so
Yeah.
we I don't like. I used to back in the day. I used to just smash them because I was a butthead, I guess. But really, they don't bug me much. I mean, my cats have more fun with them than I probably do. But yeah,
Right.
that explains why I like. I'm just like something is itching me, and I keep like, what the is happening? Gosh dang it! All right, that answers that because I was like, something's giving me the heebie-jeebies, and I can't figure it out.
That's funny.
I'm surprised you saw that on camera. Good for you. There you go.
Some would say I'm a very observant individual, so
Excellent. So this has been Bug Catching 101
that's right.
with your host Alex and special guest Jacob, the bug catcher. So looking at February, I see the deck list that I have here that I'll be using today, which is the Jarl deck list. And as a unexperienced Guardian noob, what advice would you give on this deck? No, I have not watched the dev talk on what I should do with this. I probably should have. But I kind of didn't want to spoil myself. I kind of wanted to experience the figure stuff out as I go.
So, well, with Guardian, in most cases, your whole game plan is block 6, send like
One
8, or
really
send
big card.
6, right? Like that's pretty much the whole concept. But in Jarl specifically, a lot of almost setup is occurred because you want to make sure that you're getting -1 counters on your opponent's equipment. Whether that be them using that equipment or you putting that on there, you want to make sure that gets on there because then you can start blocking with the Forgetting Unforgiving and getting a Mangle into Banish. And then also, you can make sure to play things like Frozen to Death to destroy your opponent's equipment. And then that way, every single time you play an ice card like Winter's Bite or Polar Blast or anything like that, you end up getting a Frostbite in your opponent's equipment zone. And that's going to stop a lot of these like big aggro decks from being like able to really pop off and do some crazy stuff. So
It is
that's
kind of
pretty much the
interesting
plan with
they put the
Jarl.
logo for like a snowflake on the back of so many of these, and then obviously for the Earth cards they have that. So I think it's intriguing that they've changed they're continuing to add more cards that have that cool backdrop, which is really neat to see.
Mm-hmm.
Winter's Grass looks so much. Did they change the text on Winter's Grass? Because it's just a blank text box.
I would imagine so.
Because like, I thought there was very few cards that just had a blank text box.
Yeah, Winter Scraps initially had the text box of the hand of winter grasps the land, laying life to rest.
Yeah, so it was a quote, not so. Yeah, okay, that's that. They just took the flavor text away, which is kind of silly because I would have liked the flavor text with the background. So I don't know, it's kind of an interesting choice that they did that. But maybe again for ease of functionality, they're using these to make sure somebody can play and not have that flavorful lore, because none of these cards seem to have a flavor text on them. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
because again, like the concept of this is not for lore purposes. In theory, it's a new player wants to get a deck off the shelf and attempt to play it, and they need to know what the card is, how to identify the card's talent and class type and stuff like that based off of those things. So,
My dude, are you flying around now? He's flying around.
he's pissed.
Now he's in the middle of a light. He's gonna bake himself in the middle of that thing. It's hot. All right, so let's see here. I do think what I'd like to do is, well, there's no sideboard, so it's gonna be when we play here. Who am I facing? I'm gonna be facing. You said that it's gonna be.
You know what? I just realized I'm gonna change my hero.
Oh, does Vincent do arcane damage?
Vincent does arcane damage.
So I was just asking a question about this, and I see like this is a very relevant.
Yeah.
I would have laughed if our entire game was just like arcane, 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 arcane.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. The deck, like I'm playing like my CC deck of Vincent, so it's definitely not like some freaking insane
I walked
thing.
into my armory, which is you, and I sat down and I'm like, "Hey, I want to play a game." You're like, "Hey, I'm gonna smack you with this arcane stuff." Like,
I said,
what?
Shut up. I said, shut up. You know what I'm gonna do? Hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this, and then I'll come back.
I still think it'd be fun to try that match at some point, because I feel like I would learn a lot. Because again, I don't know much about Vincent either.
I'll get you learning for sure. That's a thing. That's better.
I'll still go second, I guess. Oh, Reinar. Oh, gonna be a huge old intimidation beat stick. It sounds like.
It do be what it gonna be like.
So okay, here's the $1 million question, because I did ask this on Flesh and Pod, and I'm not really sure their answer was, in my opinion, sufficient to what I wanted to hear. But this deck, the Origins version of a deck compared to the Armory level deck, right? This Origins level deck has legendaries and some other stuff. So the power level theoretically is one tick up from the base Armory level stuff. Now, playing those into other Armory decks, do you think that those are on par, fair, and even keel? Like they would be able to both equally win and lose, barring that you have, like some Brody Spurlock or some really good pilot, like just an average Joe Schmo. Do you think that they're...
See, now I think that's really what it comes down to, though, is that, and I know this for a fact because I've seen it happen. The pilot makes the deck.
Okay.
Always. And so you can take two new players and who have never played Flesh and Blood before, and if they go into each other, you're probably looking at right around the same skill level no matter what deck you choose. But if you take a professional player who decided that day they wanted to just pick up a -IO structure deck and go into their armory, they might go 3-0 with the deck. And it's strictly because they know what their opponents are like. They know what they're looking to do. They have all that information. They have the matchups. They understand the levels and the values of every single card. And so it's a lot more easier for them to just be like, cool, I can piece out everything. I can see where my lines are, where I should play this, where I should play that. And that's what's important in regards to, into a deck. So that's really what it is I think that they are on par with one another. I know I've seen, I've seen Jarls beat Boltons because Bolton kind of needs that resources and Frostbite suck against them. But then I've seen -IOs beat Jarl. And,
so what about
Jarl right out of the
versus
box?
like Icelander or Lexi? Because that, again, thinking of ice versus ice as an example, like are those going to be interesting matchups because they're both like fatigue style? So I guess genre wise, let me go one step back. The Jarl deck is going to be more of a grindy fatigue style, or where does it fit into the archetypes of decks?
Depends on how you play it. I think right out of the box, it's a more aggressive style of hero. because you want to make sure that you're hitting your opponent for a lot. You're making sure that you're getting your mangle crush effects off because your arm piece gives your mangle dominate and +2 if you pitch an earth and a ice card. So it's important that that happens for you to assist with your mangle getting its damage off. I think it's really aggressive in the out of the box, but how I would play it is completely different because I would play it more defensive. I would play that fatigue style of gameplay where it's like, cool, okay, you come at me for 12 damage on your turn, I block it all effectively, and then I just come at you for 4. And it's like, cool, okay, 4 damage doesn't seem like a lot, but at some point in the game, you're going to need to start blocking. I might be able to keep my hand on a turn in which your hand sucks, and then I get to go ahead and do things like put -1 counters on your equipment. Or if you use your equipment for a combo to try and beat me and I'm able to block out efficiently or at least like prevent as much damage as I can, now you have an exposed equipment zone, which means that anytime I play an ice card, you get a frostbite, which makes it harder for you to get your combo off unless you're playing a bunch of like blues, in which case it's a little bit easier, but it's all depending on who you're going against.
So looking at some of the equipment, this Olin Ice Cap says when it defends together with an ice card, create a frostbite under attacking hero's control. However, when the chain, because it has blade break, it's like a one-time kind of a thing. So I feel like they've changed the way frostbites can pile up, because I remember as a -IO player playing against like Lexi or playing against, Icelander, and just having a fat stack of like, I'm like 6 or so, frostbites deep. I almost feel like that's not a thing anymore.
I mean, you certainly can do that. I mean, it's not in the base structure deck, but if your opponent has an exposed equipment zone and you play Arctic Incarceration red, you don't get go again on it, but you can give your opponent 3 frostbites and then 1 frostbite in their exposed zone. That gives 4 frostbites. That makes an aggro player effectively have to stop their turn and not be able to do as much on their turn unless they have like 2 blues in hand. But
now you said Arctic
most
Incarceration red, but that's not in the Jarl construction.
Correct.
Deck.
That's what I'm saying. Is that like in the structure deck, you're probably looking at 1, 2, if not 2 frostbites whenever you can play those ice cards. Simply because it's enough to go, hey, you're gonna have to pay a little bit extra resources, because you also, while ice is an important element to have in a format, it shouldn't be debilitating, right? You shouldn't be to the point where you're 6, 7 frostbites deep, unless of course that's what your hero is supposed to do. Jarl, by definition,
it's an earth
is
and
getting
ice.
Right. They're earth and ice, and more specifically, they care a lot more about ice, but you have to play an ice card, and it's not give your opponent a frostbite. It's give your opponent a frostbite in an exposed zone.
Yes, it's a very different style of what I remember.
Correct.
My wet, sweaty fear of, oh my god, frostbites are back, I'm screwed as a mech player, seems very different. Now, granted, I guess technically you could still blow up your own stuff like with a mech player or whatever. You'll still open yourself up to these things. It's not that it's infallible, but it's not like it's just, here's 3 or 4 things, you get a bunch of this, and my turn is basically over. Now, something interesting I noticed is the legendary in this is both, it's an Earth, Ice, and Guardian card. So it is at the moment locked down specifically to, I believe, Jarl, or can Starvo run that?
Starvo can run that, yeah.
Okay. So are those the only 2 that could run that?
And Oldham.
Okay.
But that's it.
Got it. Okay.
But both of those heroes are in Living Legend, so can't play them easily.
Sure. And then the Ice Guardian equipment head, the Olin Ice Cap, that would be an Ice Guardian, which is again the same folks in this case.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the Earth Guardian equipment legs, same grouping.
That one can go in Terra though, if they get an adult hero.
Yes, because
or technically you can play them in Blitz. So
now the weapon is an Earth Ice Guardian weapon as well, so that falls into the purview of those multiple individuals too.
Correct.
And then Tectonic Crust, which is probably, I would say, the more interesting one of this. I mean, I like the art on it a lot. There's birds on it too. That's kind of cute. That is just a straight Earth Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And then because the Summit the Unforgiving is a single one-handed weapon, that Buckler looks like it's an offhand, which is intriguing because it looks like the heavy mechanic wants you to get rid of your Buckler.
Yeah.
So is it beneficial to do that early?
So the concept here is effectively you wear down your opponent with your defensive stuff to block out a bunch of their big early turn combo attacks when they're playing their reds to attack you, and you can block with your armor and block with cards from hand. And then as you've started to wear them down, you've also in those same turns where you've taken a lot less damage because you're utilizing your armor to block, you can use those same turns to use the cards in the deck to give those -1 counters to your opponent on their armor pieces, and then set up those turns in which you can destroy their armor. And destroying their armor, usually middle of the game, right? You're probably near out of equipment. You probably have kept your gloves, if anything. And you can go ahead and just anytime you have that, you can just go, okay, cool. I'm going to play an ice card to pump whatever I'm doing. And then I'm going to go ahead and that ice card, because you play an ice card, you get to put a frostbite in your opponent's exposed zone. Every single time your opponent gets a frostbite, it makes it harder for them to be able to play their line efficiently because they have to have one extra resource for that. So
Sure.
In this specific scenario, that's really what it comes down to is, are you able to do that and present that damage? And in most cases, you can. In most cases, it's just like, okay, cool. This is exactly what you want out of that, is to present a ton of damage,
So with
and
Summit
really break it
here,
down.
Summit costs 6. That seems
Uh-huh.
like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to try and hold up to 2 blues to use that one time in a turn.
Mm-hmm.
But because you're pitching them, that means that they'll come back at some point.
That is correct.
And if you've gotten rid of the shield, now you're doing basically 2 for 6, which is not a 0 for 4.
Let me tell you, if we're going to be entirely honest about it, I think Summit is a shit weapon, and I'll go on camera and I'll say that. But for the sake of learning, it's fine, right? It's cool because it gets you still get an on hit of a frostbite at the late game where your opponent probably has used their armor. If that hits and you get another frostbite on top of the other frostbites you may have already gotten, it debilitates the game plan, right?
What would have made
makes
this
it more difficult.
From what a shit weapon to like, would it cost 3? Would have been, hey, it's a great weapon, or two
If
good?
it cost 3, that would have been busted. If it cost 3, it would have been busted because it should not cost 3. Like Anathos costs 3, but Anathos also only gets up to 6 when you pitch, 2, 3, or higher power, or 2 cost or more cards in your pitch zone. I think that what would make it more powerful is if it was the same stats as Sledge of Anvilheim, which is a 2-handed weapon, but which is just, it costs 4 but comes in for 6, but it had that trigger of you had to have heavy on it, because then you can pay 4 damage for 6, but then on hit get a frostbite.
If you could, in theory, actually run 2 of these, which it looks like you can, would it be dumb to run 2 of these?
Yeah, you're never going to have enough resources to swing 2.
And you'd never get the +2 because you could never get rid of the actual weapon.
Correct.
It would never bust and increase. So. But you could if you were just being stupid, just for whatever.
You could if your janky casual self wishes to run 2 summits, then who am I to tell you how to do that? But
can you even buy one of those on TCG Player now? I'm curious.
A summit? Yeah, you probably can.
Now I want to know, what is somebody charging for that? $295. There you go. For $2.95, you too can be a degenerate. For one easy payment of a like, a share, and subscribe on YouTube, and $3, you'll get a nice postage stamp envelope that says you're a degenerate.
Hell yeah.
Honestly, all the cards in this deck are surprisingly like 20 cents, 30 cents, $1, $3, $2, $4. The most expensive card is somehow they've arbitrarily dictated that the legendary is worth $18.40 when it's just as rare as the tectonic crust at $3.06. Mm-hmm. That is the funniest mental mind game I've ever seen.
It do be like that.
All right. Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to officially in the editing world going to pause this so that I can flip over my screen, and because I would do it here, but I can't because my auto is broken. Apparently, my damn technology failed me. And then we can jump over and try and play this this match. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna smack the buttons to make us go where we need to go. So
cool. Wait, how do we begin?
Yeah.
Like on Talishar?
Submit deck.
Yep. So you'll submit your deck. I'll submit my deck, and then we start. Dang
it, Giga Chad! Why? I keep forgetting I have that. I actually don't know. Can I make this completely full screen without the taskbar?
If you hit F11.
Yeah, I like that much better. There we go. Excellent. Excellent. All right, who's going first?
Well, it'd be me going first.
You're going first.
I'll be going first. So I'm going to go ahead and just do me a favor.
Do you have your own card sleeves, by the way? I guess I could try to find you somewhere.
I do not. I don't
know how.
I am a patron to Talishar, or not to Tal. I'm a patron to Fabrary, but I'm not a patron to Talishar. So, or I don't have a thing to do whatever that is. So,
all right, so you have.
So I'm going to be discarding this Agile Windup. So it's going to get me an agility token, but it's not going to intimidate more specifically. So,
okay.
And then we're just going to simply go ahead and we are going to swing our club here.
Unga club. This club is coming at me for a magical 4. Cards that I could block with. I have a couple options here. Winter's Grasp is a blue card. That's a blue card. Both only block for... That blocks for 2. Blocks for 3. Amulet of Ice does nothing in this scenario. I feel like if I get rid of more than one blue here... I feel like...
Also, did you want me to look at your screen?
Oh, yeah. Feel free. Feel free.
Okay. I just wanted to... In case you needed any guidance as to, like, turn, like...
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm
I also don't want to, like, it's like the roughest part is because, like, if I know what you have, it's a lot easier for me to tell you, like, what line I would play. But
so I'm going to choose Winter's Grass to block this, and the reason I am is because at least the Sigil of Earth has Go Again, and the Winter's Grass does not have Go Again. Plus, the Central, this is only a 2, that's a 3. And in the scenario here where there's no sense in using my shield yet, in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and I guess accept that that is the 1 card block. Maybe that's a weird way to do it, but I know I get to drop a card, so hopefully that's...
Yep, you do get to drop a card, so that'll be good. So I'll go ahead. We'll pass that through. You'll take 1.
Ting.
And then I'm going to move to my end step. I'll put this in my arsenal. Pass it on over.
Ooh, I got another buckling blow. All right, so... couple of things to think about. Once per turn, if an earth card is pitched, card name Mangle gets +2. Now, that's kind of useless because I don't have a Mangle at this point.
Now, so it's useless, but it's useless in regards to its actual effect. The important part here is that Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain allow you to filter the cards in your hand. So if, for instance, you just wanted to keep 2 blues and swing your weapon, you can filter those buckling blows out of your hand by pitching them. And then that way you have, you don't have to worry about having all these like excessive cards. Like if you have like an all red hand, you can just be like, cool, I don't want these in my hand. I'd rather pitch stack them to be able to do something later.
So you're basically saying in this scenario, a big brain move is, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to pitch in this case because I don't really need to. Well, let's do. Hold on. So there's 2 paths. You're saying I could pitch both of these at 1 apiece to trigger this to get them out of my hand, just to put them in the bottom of my deck, knowing I'll get them later, or I could also try and play one of them.
Yeah, because they cost 4, right?
Which means I'm kind of going to have to overpitch, but then I'd also can pay for that if I have floating resources. So
yeah. So, but effectively, you're not going to really need to at this point. You could probably play because Sigil of Earth costs 0, right?
Yeah.
And Sigil of Amulet of Ice also costs 0, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So theoretically, you could do either one of those and then pitch the rest of your hand into Buckling Blow for that damage,
embodiment
right?
of Earth token is going to. I mean, I guess I'll play that. Oop, what is happening here?
Okay, so essentially, since you're playing an ice card, Jarl's ability is going to activate. Because I don't have an exposed zone, I'm not going to end up getting a frostbite. So
perfect.
You just get that going there.
And then we're going to play that, and I'll pitch these 2. Try and come in for.
Just coming in for 8.
Vanilla 8. And then if it deals 4 or more damage, you get a -1 on equipment, which is theoretically something that we would like to get on there. Now, you're also, I guess your Battle Worn puts -1 on your stuff too. So in the long run, you'll have -1 counters on your things.
Correct,
Just by the nature of you leveraging the pieces.
Mm-hmm. So in this situation, we can simply... How do we want to do this?
Welcome to this tutorial on how to play Jarl. Carl, Barl, Harl, Marl.
We're going to block 6 here.
6. Predatory and Rawhide Rumble with Beat Chest.
All right. So no crush effect on there. So we don't have to worry about that.
Okie dokie. Choose a card from your pitch zone to put on the bottom. Sigil. Boo-boo.
Yep. And so in this situation here, what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to play Barraging Beatdown.
Statistically weird.
I'm going to intimidate a card from your hand. So that card was... There was a card that was just intimidated from your hand.
Yep.
You can go ahead and you should be able to see that there.
Yep.
And then I am simply going to go ahead and do this here. I got 9 go again.
Oh, with Bear Fangs.
So I did not get the additional +2 because I banished an Oasis Respite and not a 6. Or not banished. I discarded a 6. I did not discard a 6. So it's coming in for 9 go again, though, which is pretty good.
Well, let me think here. So
and if you block this with 2 non-equipment cards, it will lose +3 damage. So it'll go back down to 6.
Well, let's think. So I have some options here. Now, this sounds like a good time to try to use at least that. I feel like that's a good start. Since I'm stuck with only 3 cards in my hand, one of them I know I can't do anything with because it's an Amulet of Ice. We have Emerging Avalanche, which is an ice fusion. I don't really do much fusion. I've not really done much of that in my life, so I'm not sure the value of the fusing in the scenario here, but I do have an ice item, so I could fuse it.
You could fuse it.
Which... when Emerging Avalanche is fused, create a frostbite under your hero, so that would give you harder to play. And then, so that would be kind of like a 2 I'd have to pay 2 to make that work, but I really don't have enough resources to make that happen with the other card in my hand, both of which being red and a red. So looking at my options, I guess I will choose to block with that. And you said if I were to block with one more card, it would...
It'll go down to 6.
Which means if I've already put 3 and 4, 5, I would actually be over blocking.
Correct.
So I'm going to choose just to do that. Sounds kind of silly, I guess, but yeah, I don't think I want it. That's a blade break. That is temper. That is blade break, and that also has temper. So let's choose to try that and see what happens.
Okay. So you'll go ahead and you'll end up taking 4 damage there. I am going to do nothing else on my turn because I do not have resources for anything there. So I'm going to pass that on up and move on over to you.
All right. So I do have that card back in my hand. So what we're going to try... I guess we're going to hard mode this. We're going to...
So Mangle's interesting, right? The Mangle, because while it's good, in this situation, its crush effect doesn't matter because I don't have a -1 counter on my equipment.
At this point, correct.
Right.
And
so that certainly
could have kept it longer, I think. And I could have played Buckling Blow in its stead. Maybe that would have been the better option.
Yeah, because if you went Buckling Blow in its stead, then that's a very simple move.
It's still a 4 for 8.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, in this situation, it's like, okay, cool. The crush effect doesn't really matter to me, though. So I can simply go ahead and just do something like this.
So really, the better move in that scenario would have been to play the Buckling Blow and pitch the Mangle to keep it for later.
Yes. I personally believe so.
Don't follow my mistakes.
I'm going to block out just some damage here. So we're going to clash, and you got a gold. So that's got to be sick. That's cool for you. But I don't believe you have any reactions or anything, so it's now on the reaction step.
Nothing. No reactions.
All right. We'll do that. I'm going to go ahead, and then I will, on my turn, simply just swing club for 4.
Well, let's spice it up. Block that. And we'll just pass.
Okay.
And my hope is that goes away.
Yep. So you'll lose your shield, which means that you can now swing your weapon for 6 damage and on hit frostbite to my exposed zone, which I do not have any of currently.
So I think the first thing I'm going to try and do, just for funsies, so we're going to play this card.
Okay, Winter's Bite. Pay 1 to avoid discarding. Yeah, I'll actually prevent 1.
And how did you generate the resource?
So it's pay 1 resource or discard a card. So I paid the 1 resource with my Oasis Respite.
Got it. Okay. So you still have 3 cards in your hand, and you have a card arsenal. Okay. So next up, I'm going to attempt to we're going to pop the gold by playing the theory of that and get a card. So I still got a card, but it was not another blue, which is kind of sad. I do have one floating resource. So theoretically, I can try a couple of shenanigans here. Cannot afford to play that card. I don't have anything useful there. So I think the only option here is let's go for playing that. Nope, I actually can't pitch the
You don't have the resources for that.
It's I have to play this one. Pitching no. Right? No, I can. I can. Right? Because I have one floating resource.
Oh, you do have one floating resource. That's right. Yep,
Yeah. I was like, I read this right, I thought. And I can't fuse it though.
No fuse, so just damage.
Just a raw 7.
Fine. I'll simply block 3 here.
Taking a little bit off the top.
All right. And then on my turn, I'm simply going to utilize my Agile Windup ability.
Ooh.
I'm going to discard it. I'm going to get an agility. Whoops, hold on. I'm a liar. I hit that button far too fast. Ability. Yeah. Swing club. That's what I want.
Coming in for a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at what I have. Okay, so I have something interesting. You have not used any of your one's defends. If the attacking hero controls an equipment with a -1, search your deck for a mangle. We don't have any of those. So I would like to just go ahead and take it. Sounds like.
He is taking 4. Okay. Sounds good. So I'll go ahead and pass the end of my turn there.
All right. First and foremost, we are going to try the thing. And we're going to pitch this Madude, which satisfies the Earth piece, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So that.
So your next Mangle will get +2.
Mangle will need some additional resources, which is that Madude. And now it's coming in for 10.
10 damage.
But I don't have any -1 counters or anything still, so I'm not sure.
That is true.
I don't really know how I can get -1 stuff on yours. That's been my...
The real question here is...
Defense attacking hero.
Do I just block... one card here, or 2? Because 7 damage is a lot to take, but I'm pretty sure my next turn's pretty spicy, so...
Ooh. Okay.
I think I'm going to block 3, and I'll take 7.
Okie dokie.
So no Mangle effect, because I still don't have -1 counters on my equipment. Now, just before... All right, hold on. We're going to reset that turn.
Oh, okay.
do what you did again, right? Hit me with the Mangle.
Oh, okay. Yep. There we go.
Yep. Okay. This here. And then we'll continue to take 7. Do not put that card in your arsenal.
Do not put that card in my arsenal. Okay.
Do not. Block cards cannot be played from arsenal. So that will effectively make it so you can never use your arsenal again for the rest of the game.
Now, I thought defense reactions... No, block is not a defense reaction.
Block is not a defense reaction, so...
Okay. Well, so then no...
So you can just hit pass, and then it'll say, do you want to skip arsenal? The answer is yes.
Gotcha.
So that's one of the situations where it's, it's pretty important to know at least that block value card. because you definitely do
You
not
know,
want
I'm
to.
sure someone's going to give me some major shit and be like, even Mechanologist has block cards. I don't run any of those.
Yeah.
So I need to reassess my understanding of some of that basic stuff there, which is kind of funny, I guess.
All right, so I am going to my agility pops, so I'm going to get go again on my next attack action. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attack with Savage Feast. I discarded a 6 at random, and then it was Reincarnate. Yeah, so the only card I had left in my hand was Reincarnate. Reincarnate, since it was discarded at random, I get to put it at the bottom of my deck. I can then choose whether or not I want to do Beaten Trackers, which I am not going to at this point. And then Rhinar is going to intimidate a card out of your hand.
Okay.
So we
Well, that
intimidated a
stinks.
card. Now this is coming in for 6. Go again.
Well, we got Fun Blue here with the fusion. Fun Blue with the fusion. And gains Dominate. I guess I can keep those. That cost 1. This cost 2. I'm going to just play this weird and see. So that would destroy that. Let's do 2 here. And 2 here. But that shouldn't destroy those.
No, they have temper, so they'll go down to just -1. So that's all good there. We'll move to take damage. And then I'm going to swing my Romping Glove at you for 5.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was going to happen. So, I would make sense to try, but I'm just going to go ahead and take it and see what I can do.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move to my end step.
And I get that back. All right. So, not really super familiar with let's do if it was fused, you may destroy an equipment with a -1 counter. I don't have any of that. So let's try this. We'll play that, and we're going to pitch. We'll pitch that, and review fuse with that.
Okay. So that will get me a Frostbite there.
My alarm clock just said Mr. Meow Day. I'm very sad now.
No.
Yeah, technically tomorrow is the quote unquote anniversary of his his passing.
I knew that was coming up. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, it's been an off and on week. As much as I've done my favor of not trying to go down that rabbit hole.
Wow.
Lots of other animal love around the house, so we've been having fun with that.
That's good.
What just happened here? So, did that actually work?
Yep. So I got a Frostbite, and now this is an aura. So at the beginning of your next turn, it will destroy itself, and then the next attack action you get gets +1.
Now to Frostbite at the beginning of your end step, when you play at the beginning of your end step, or when you if I give you more than 1 Frostbite, it's really not going to be of much use to me at the moment.
I mean, giving me more Frostbites is always good because it means if I don't have like good resources in my hand, I can't use them. I can't use if I have like an all red hand, it's going to be really rough for me to be able to do anything on my turn. But from what I can tell based on your hand, you probably do not have much of anything to do in that regard. You can Amulet of Ice because you did Ice Fuse with that card, so you can make me discard a card effectively or pay resources for a card.
Yeah, let's do it. Mine as well.
Okay, so I think I will pay 2, and I'm going to simply I'll pay 2 like that.
Got it. So I'm going to pass, and then I am
Okay.
going to go to the end of turn, hopefully. And I'm going to
Yep.
stick that in my arsenal. And
All right.
on to you.
Then my turn is I have a frostbite, so I have to pay an additional resource for stuff.
What's that toggle for here, by the way?
The toggle is so that whether or not it does it automatically or not. You destroy this, and then your next action gets +1. Effectively, it just shows like, hey, like, do you want to skip that whole thing and just immediately have it happen, or do you want to toggling it on means that you're letting Talishar know that you want to trigger something before or after when this effect happens to give yourself that priority window. It's just some more advanced things, but not like insane in this regard. I am going to simply go ahead. I'm going to use Mighty Wind-Up's ability to discard it.
Get a might.
I'm going to pitch this card to do that because I need to because of the frostbite.
Yep. And
I'll intimidate a card out of your hand. So if you have any instance or anything you want to play, you can do that first.
So I do have something interesting here, but do exposed elements with fused with an earth card, you can put a -1 counter on target equipment. Sadly, I do not have said earth card or said ice card. Yuck. So I guess I have to pass.
Okay. So Rhinar will now intimidate a card out of your hand. So this is again another trigger, so don't worry about all that. And then I'm simply going to go ahead and come in with a Romping Club for 5. There we go. It's a block value there.
Good enough.
All right. And then that is going to be the end of my turn. So I will now pass that on over to you.
Instance, man. I do not like these instance Samian. So we're going to begin to play this by pitching. I guess logically it makes sense to pitch that, since can't really do much else.
Okay, so from what I can see, because I have the ability to look at your hand, you playing this card is going to do nothing. And the reason it's going to do nothing is because A, you didn't play it from Arsenal, so you don't get to draw a card.
I did play it from Arsenal.
Did you?
Yes. That's the only
You
reason.
did. Yeah. Never mind. Forget what I fucking said. Okay.
Yeah,
I was just like, what? I was like, you're not going to be able to do...
I was hoping I would get a blue, but in this case, not quite a blue. So
see, I probably would have paid a red for that to keep that blue in your hand. But you can theoretically just pitch 2 reds into the 2 resources to play any of your 4-cost attacks. So you can still do something.
I just can't do the other, which is the mangle here. I was trying to see if I could also get the dominate, kind of a thing. Sounds like I'm not going to be able to, but I can still do the mangle. It's just
the real question is do I care? Do I care? Do I care?
When this hits, create an embodiment. I think it would be better to save the mangle and go for a big old something else.
All right. I did pay the 1, so
we're gonna play that, and I'm gonna pitch my mangle.
Gotcha.
So that 8. I can get it, hopefully at some point. Although
now that is a lot of damage, so I'm going to just block out effectively.
Okay.
So you do get an embodiment earth, which is going to be kind of nice.
Yeah, I need that. We're going to put that there, then that, and I don't put that in the arsenal.
All right. I'm simply going to go ahead and swing club again for 5.
Swing club. We will choose to do that.
Okay.
Now, doesn't your non-actions have +1 while defending? Yeah, that's...
All right, so I'll pass it on up.
Well, I think in order for me to make this happy, that's a 6, that's a 7, and that is a defensive thing. You're just not using any of your fun stuff here, which sucks. So
Yeah, that's kind of the benefit, is that if your opponent is not willing to block with their equipment, effectively my whole thought process into this deck is, can I just block you out enough to where it's not like, you know, I can just block you out and swing club, because I only need to pay 2 resources to come in for 4, whereas
Sure.
you need to pay 6 resources to come in for 6. So if we can just keep that pressure up, we're in a pretty good spot. But I am it's actually
But I
kind of
am
an
getting
interesting
over
hand.
my 6s. I'm getting 7s and 8s, which is leaking a little bit.
Yeah, that is good.
Excuse me.
Actually, see, like, it's a situation like this where I'm looking at your arsenal or your graveyard. You have 1 mangle in your grave, 2 mangles in grave. There's so much about that. I think in this situation, I actually am going to,
because I only have the 1 mangle that I just put on the bottom of the deck, sadly.
Yeah. I want to block. I want to block like this. Maybe we don't need all that, because you're gonna get this anyway. I might just block like this. Yeah, we YOLO.
Taking a little
So it's like, as much as I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to get your equipment, like, or I want to use my equipment to block, I think it's just not the time, because my equipment is significantly more valuable for my blocking power when you have dominate, and you have not been able to really dominate me right now. So we're in a pretty okay spot. I am going to simply do this. I'm going to use the ability. We're going to not intimidate a card out of your hand. Then I'm going to simply play barraging. And then I'm going to play Pack Hunt for 9. Banish another card out of your hand. And so if you block this with 2 cards that are not equipment, it will get -3. So it'll go down to 6. Okay. Sounds good. And I'll go ahead and we'll pass it on over.
Okay. So, things I can do. Let's try that dude by popping off that dude.
Gotcha. 6 on hit frostbite. That's pretty good. Let's see what we can do in this regard. Let's block. I think I am actually going to block 3 here now. This is just better. Well, we could. This could just swing club, right? So, I like this better because we have the agility token. So we could do that. Pitch 1, draw 1, possibly come in for a club. So no, it's better to do this here because I don't want to frostbite. So I'll give you the -1s, and if I end up losing to it, it's whatever. I don't really care that I lose this equipment. I mainly want to just make sure I present enough. So we're going to start off here I'm going to play, because my first attack action is going to get go again. I'm going to play Savage Feast, and I'm going to pitch this High Roller. It is a 6 that I banished, or that I discarded. So I get a beaten tracker's trigger, which doesn't really matter. I'm going to intimidate a card from your hand. I'm going to draw. Well, that's just kind of shit, actually, but it's whatever.
Kidoki, so you're coming at 6.
Yep.
Let's see here. Well, I'd like to actually use that, which means I need something. I don't happen to have any of... Oh, I do. Okay, so that changes the theory. So then that plus that equals I need to pay for that, so I can choose one of these to block, and that has a block value of 3. So let's try that.
Okay. Through. Resolve that, and then I'm just going to swing my club for 5. He's taking 5. All right. And we'll go ahead and pass up. I'm going to skip my arsenal.
All right.
I like my card in my hand.
Attempt to do this.
Channel Mount Ison. Okay.
Okay. So now what I'd like to do is play that, pitching this, fusing that. Right?
Yep. You just got to click them there. There you go. So 7 fused on hit. Create a frostbite token. So in this situation, I can simply go ahead and we are going to block 7. Then we're going to clash. And this time I get a gold.
Uh-oh.
That's good. All right. Then, so in this situation, it's a little difficult, right? Because with that Channel Mount Ison, because you didn't pitch an ice card, that card's going to go away.
Yep.
So that'll end up going away there. And then I'll go ahead and I'm going to simply swing club for 4.
You may destroy an equipment with -1, so that means I have to keep that plus that and one of these. So let's choose a tree and do that.
Okay. I'll take 1, go down to 10. And then I will pass and put that in my arsenal.
Okay, so let's do this, pitching here, fusing that. Seems like a good play.
The frozen to death. All right, well, fuck me, I guess. I will say nothing then. You now get to choose one of my pieces of equipment, destroy it, and then I'll get a frostbite token on it. So my headpiece allows me to do an intimidate pretty much, almost kind of sometimes. I'd say out of the 3 of these, my beaten trackers are probably the most efficient because it means I get another action point.
Yeah.
So.
And you got a frostbite in there. That was.
Yep. Sweet. Okay. Let's see here. We're gonna go ahead. I think our goal is
to survive.
Do this. Yeah, because we're just going to present a ton of damage. So we have to pitch 2. Pitching here. choose a card from. Oh, to beat chess. That's right. We will. We will. It's like we could beat chess for 4. That brings me 10. This brings me to 9. 10, 9. I think 10 is. I mean, 10's a bigger number, right? Like that's how that works. We can also go 8. Yeah, that'll do. So we're going to intimidate a card from your hand. And then we are going to... Well, you know what? I guess we could do this, right? This, intimidate another card out of your hand.
Jeez.
And then we can swing our club for 8. 9.
9. Well, that's
2 intimidates and 9 is pretty good. So
what's in my intimidations? I got a that and a that. Okay. Well, I guess we need to at least choose that. That is not an ice card. So let's choose that. And choose that.
there you go. You get a seismic surge. It's pretty good. Take 4. Then I will move to the end of my turn.
Right. So, crud. I think I need to get that out there.
Okay, so I get a frostbite because it's a nice card.
Yep. And then we'll go this way.
Okay. No fuse, so don't get a frostbite.
And then I can't really do much else.
Huh.
What?
Okay. The pass.
Choose a ice card? Yep.
Yep. So yeah, so that's the card that Channel Mount Ison is looking for. So that way you can keep that on the field for longer. So in this situation, I actually lost a life because of Mount Ison because I had that frostbite in my exposed zone. So you got free point of damage there. My turn is going to be well, we don't want to do all that. I'd rather do See, now, because we're getting so close to the end of the game, I think it's more important that we do this. We rolled a 6.
Jesus.
Go, gamers! Let's go! All right, so that's what we're fucking talking about. That's what we'd like to see. We'll go ahead and we will...
That probably just ended me.
We're going to assumedly draw a card for free.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Then maybe we go ahead and we do... Well, we should probably do... Let's do this.
Refund on that dice roll.
We'll do... Oh, wait, that cost me 1. Hold on. That's not right. That's not right. Hold on. I got 1 floating. We're just going to do... oh, God. This is kind of rough, actually. We'll do this. Banish a card from hand. You have a might token also, so that's pretty good. Then I think we just need to go ahead and we need to do. It sucks because this is in my hand, and if I miss, I'm going to feel as bad, but I think we just go for damage here. So, all right, 13. I'd say it's pretty good for blocking with 2 cards and your equipment.
Most I can block would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to block with everything or I'm dead.
We like to see that.
Like 1, 2, because I'm still dead at that point. That's the only way I live, right?
Yep. So yeah. So with the at least with the barraging beatdown, if you block with the 2 cards from your hand, it does get -4. So it goes back down, but -4 into 13 is what that. Well, it goes down to 9, right? So if you were blocking 6 into 9, you'd still take 3.
If I'm reading this, I'm still going to take 2 even with the full block.
Yes. Yeah. You're still going to take 2 here with a full block. So, but I get a frostbite, which doesn't really matter because I'm ending my turn. So, I will. I'm not going to put that card in Arsenal. I will just draw.
So it's my go?
Yep, your turn. Oh, hold on.
What'd I do? Oops. Thought I'd go back.
There you go.
Ruh-roh.
Wait, hold on. I'm on my turn again. Hold on. Sorry.
I can do that.
13. Yep.
Because you'd intimidated 2 cards out of my hand. That's why
Correct.
I have those. Okay. Yep.
So I'm not going to add a card to Arsenal. So now it is your turn.
Okay. So in order for me to play that, I need to pitch those.
Gotcha.
Still good.
9 damage. Still pretty good.
That 6 on those resources, man. I think that flipped the head on me.
Mm-hmm. That'd be pretty good. Let's see here. What can we do? We can block here. We can do this and we can pray. So because it's not fused, so we don't get any kind of dominate or anything. I can take 6. I have no problem doing that. So let's do that.
Now, do I have to get rid of cards for the channelizing, or can I just let it go?
Yeah, no, you have to. So what happens is before you pitch to the end of your turn, it checks to see your pitch zone to see how many ice cards you have in there. And if you can pitch the amount of cards that are on that flow counter, then it'll stay on the board for the next turn. But if you can't, it gets destroyed.
Got it.
All right. So I'm going to start by playing High Roller.
Well, good game, good sir, is all I can say.
I think I might have you here, but it all depends on how this gamble happens, right?
Expose the elements 0 unless they pay. What is this? Expose the elements was fused with an ice card. Destroy an equipment with 0 defense. So could I do this? Can I do expose to the elements to get rid of your draw a card at random thing that you might want to try to use?
Yeah, I believe I can pay for the cost to do that, though, if I recall.
Okay, so let's try that.
You do have to fuse it with an earth card to get the -1, and then an ice card to destroy an equipment. So,
well, that ain't gonna work because I don't have that. I have ice.
You have an ice card. You can fuse an ice card.
Well, I thought you said earth. Oh, earth.
You need to fuse an earth card to get the -1, and then an ice card to get the destruction effect. You want to just back that up? Hit U on your keyboard.
I don't really know if that's gonna change anything though.
It could. But it's all up to you.
Because you're saying if I were to do this, I have to pay for it, right? Which is
so if you do that, you just have to fuse it with an ice card. So when you play it, if it's fused with an ice card,
which is 2.
Correct. So yeah, if you have to pay for it, you're losing a card in your hand to pay for it, and then also you have to choose an ice card. So Okay, so it was fused. So in this case, you'll just go ahead and pass it on over to me, and then it's up to me whether or not I want to pay. I think I will pay 2, so that I don't get my stuff destroyed.
So the only other way for me to do this, which wouldn't work because I have no other way to do it, because if I were to try to play this, I have to pay for it, but then I can't fuse it. Destroying equipment with 0. Oh, so actually yours, it already had 0, right? So I can do
Yeah.
that. Screw it. We'll try it again.
Well, okay. So you have to pay for the cost, and then you also have to fuse it with an ice card. And so that second one doesn't get fused because you don't have an ice card in hand because you have to pay for it. So
if it was fused, got it. Okay, well then I have to pass.
Yeah. All right. And so then at that point, I will go ahead and...
I mean, you've already won. I have, as you can see, I had 3 zeros, 0 blocks in my hand, so if you can do more than 4 damage here, you've automatically killed me.
I am going to be able to do...
Because even if you, whatever you're doing here is more than I had defense capability, so.
There you go.
Because I had no, I mean, getting 3 0 blocks in that last hand there, I think was kind of also a death sentence, so.
Yeah, that definitely is it's a rough turn, no matter if I intimidate you or not. That is, that's a lot coming in. But let this be known that the $60 Jarl Armory deck with legendaries and majestics and everything was just beaten by a deck with $10 that only has rares and commons in it. No specializations, no fancy equipment, just Rhinar doing Rhinar things. So
and also piloted by a person that has absolutely no idea what the hell he is doing.
and another reason to be, hey, like this is where skill over cards in deck matter more because, regardless of the fact that Jarl has a pretty nice kit and is able to make things happen, you might not win a lot of your games, even though your deck is more expensive than the other armory decks. That does not make it more powerful in general. What it means is you just have a different kit to work with, and the cards are very exclusive because this hero is not in any set. And then more importantly, it is a how do I put this?
So where do I see the damage that you were doing to me? Like, it seems like you did a lot more.
So if you go up in the top part of that there, it should say switch player stats. You can switch over to my stuff and you can see what I did.
So I only threatened 70. You threatened 82.
Right. I dealt 40. You dealt 26. We didn't prevent any damage. Your average damage threatened per turn is 5.38 and mine is 6.83.
So were there any like major critical I mean, obviously having mangles I think would have helped a little bit, but at the same time, I didn't cycle through my deck that much, so
you found nearly every one of your mangles early in the game.
Yes.
And that's fine, but the problem is that you want to try and like pitch stack those mangles to allow you to utilize a lot more of those abilities on your
but did we
on
ever
your
even get
block
to second
cards.
cycle? I don't think we ever really hit second cycle.
I don't believe we did. No.
Or actually, because I got that mangle at the no, I didn't get the third mangle. Is there a way to go back to can I see the game board?
Yes, yeah. If you hit the eye up there, you can actually click on your deck
because I have 28 see where your deck left. Is. So where's the main? So yeah, I was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I was 22 cards away from mangle.
Yeah,
basically.
So
if I'm reading that right,
and that's where those unforgetting unforgivings are important. Those block cards. The reason that I did so well into this deck is simply because I know that your effects on me don't really hurt me unless I have a -1 counter on my stuff, because
Sure.
then you can either destroy it with frozen to death, or you get an additional buff from something like the Unforgetting Unforgiving. It allows you to get that mangle and banish, and then on your next turn, you can simply just not block well enough. Keep an earth and ice card in your hand that you're able to, if whether or not they're reds or something, and then you can pitch them to then activate your arm piece and give Mangle Dominate to destroy my equipment piece that has a -1 counter on it. And in those situations, that's like the better bet to do whenever you are trying to get a lot of that value out. But really, again, what it comes down to is my knowledge into Jarl is higher because, one, I do play against Jarls at my locals, and two, I know that Jarl's whole thing out the box is armor destruction, and in theory, it's his whole thing no matter what. But
Well, and the other thing is
armor
you didn't really
destruction
give me the
is
opportunity to get too much of your equipment, which I think also changes the dynamic of this deck's functionality, because there's not really a way for me to force you to block with your armor.
right. There is no way for you to force me to block with my armor. But when it comes to cards like giving like dominate and stuff, like don't get me wrong, in a learning capability, when your opponent knows that you should be blocking with armor to help preserve life totals on really big damage turns that you want to keep your hand, in situations like that, it's good to say, hey, you should block with your armor, right? Because if you block with your armor, you preserve your life total. You don't have to give up cards from your hand, and you can still present even more damage than what they're presenting on their turn. And that is the trade off, right? But when you do that against a Jarl, you in fact give them a benefit, because that means that anytime they decide to get, oh, hey, I happen to get a frozen to death, their turn can simply be block with one card, keep a blue and an ice card in hand, and you can just play frozen to death, pitch 3 to frozen to death, and then fuse it with that ice card. And now you've destroyed a piece of equipment on your opponent, and you've given them a frostbite. So now every ice card you play from that point forward is going to be one frostbite on your opponent's equipment. So, or on your opponent's side of the board. So
Sure.
it is, there's a lot to think about when it gets into Jarl, but it is
It seems like a fun deck. I mean, it really does. I mean, it's very, very different than my mechanologist concepts. I mean, it's very different. So,
yeah. Yep, different thing. A lot of what Guardian tends to do is block efficiently and then attack with their weapon. And kind of like what I was doing, right? I blocked efficiently and then I swung at you for 4. And it was like, okay, cool. 4 damage is not the end of the world. Doesn't feel good, it sucks, but it's not like the end of the world. I can present more damage as a guardian on my turn if I just take 4. But that 4 over the course of the game, if you keep taking 4 and then I block 6 on my turn to your 8 power attack, I only take 2 damage on my turn, whereas you're taking 4. And if we make that trade constantly over and over throughout the
yep,
course of the game,
I'll be
I win
whittled away
because I do that damage. So that's one of those things where, like, determining where the threat is, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. We could make an entirely different podcast episode on this, but
Cool. Well,
yeah.
I think at that point, man, I'm going to say that we should probably begin to. Austin, we'll close this thing out. That was a fun game. I appreciate all the info on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hopefully at least gave you some kind of idea as to how to play it and some lines to look for. Don't play Mangles unless your opponent has a -1 counter on them, on their equipment. Make sure to kind of just there's a lot of upgrades to this deck that bulk can fix. So if people are looking to upgrade this deck to be a little bit more consistent, there's a lot of bulk ice cards that do really, really well. Believe it or not, exposed to the elements, that instant that you had in your hand, cards kind of garbage. So
I couldn't figure out what I could do with the dang thing. So yeah, that makes sense.
From a learning perspective, it's cool because it's like, yeah, you get to actually put -1 counters on your opponent's equipment, and then you also can force them to
I see what they were trying to do.
Pitch a card. Yeah. So from a learning perspective, it's really good. But the deck can easily be the sheer value of the deck can be brought up tenfold just with a few additional commons and some rares, and you're in a pretty good spot at that point. But as you can see, you know, if you take a player who plays on a regular basis in a competitive environment and you give them a $10 deck, they can go up against any other deck and still present, a pretty good turnout. So it's one of those things where, the more you play it, better you feel about it. And then you make changes to the deck and you end up becoming more consistent. And the more consistent your deck is, the better you end up being. So that's how it is.
Awesome. Well, I will wrap out by saying thanks. And if you did make it to this point watching this game, hopefully back in warning. Ooh, they must be doing some.
It's because we're still in our game, and they're like, oh, you're still in here. Like, you need to leave because other people are trying to use our backend.
All right. Well, again, thanks for everybody for watching at this point, and thanks, Alex, for hanging out with me. And other than that, yeah, this was a fun experience. We'll have to do some more games. Maybe do some blitz because I like faster. I mean, don't get me wrong; these longer games are kind of fun, but yeah, I can tell that they're definitely about an hour a piece. So.
Yeah, we can certainly do blitz too. I don't mind playing some blitz games. There's some blitz heroes I've been wanting to learn and play and try out. So
I need to see all these heroes, and I think that'd be the hardest thing is getting, like, if you were to try to do a 1-to-1, like, hey, right out on the board behind me, say I want to have this hero into every other one. I mean, you'd have hundreds of matches by the time you were done of Jarl into every existing hero and so on and so forth. It's just that roster grows. So
it sure do.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Until next time, have fun. You know where to find Alex. I think you know where to find me. So if you don't, we'll have descriptions in the doodad below. I know I'm not technically on camera, but I'm not going to try to bother to switch things back. I'm just going to go ahead and say farewell and sign out. It is past midnight for me, and it is officially Happy Mr. Meow Day. So, all righty then.
Yay!
Yay! Well, until next time, this wraps out episode 28. So, sweet. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.